Childhood is that phase of life when one is carefree and free of all responsibilities. It is the phase when we do not have to care about earning money or taking care of our possessions. But as we grow up and adulthood takes over, we come face to face with the harsh realities of life and we lose our dear ones. We lose things which were once close to our heart, and dealing with these losses is what we learn as we grow, and that is what we are going to read in the ball poem written by John Berryman. He gave a lesson that is full of wisdom. Through the loss of everyone must learn to bear the pain associated with loss. The poet assumes a boy who is playing with a ball once the ball bounces out of his control and consequently falls into the water. The boy became sad. The poet feels that no other ball will be sufficient to lessen his sadness. Here, the lost ball stands for the general loss of a human being. The losses may be the loss of personal possession or death of some near and dear one, or due to the separation from the beloved one. As long as there is life, everyone has to bear many types of losses. Therefore, we need to learn the way for bearing those losses. So let's read the ball poem written by John Berryman. So, dear students, let's talk about the ball poem which was written by John Berryman in detail. Before starting the poem, let's talk about the poet John Berryman. John Berryman was born on October 25, 1914 and died on January 7, 1972. He was an American poet and scholar. He was a major figure in American poetry in the second half of 20th century and is considered a key figure in the confectional school of poetry, and his best known work is the Dream Song. So dear students, you will be surprised to know that the best dream song, the best book or the best work, the Dream Song, this was published in 1969, and this was a sequence of 385 poems, and he won Pulitzer Prize for this dream also, this Dream Song also, and he also won National Book Award for this. So when we are talking about the theme of the poem, we know that we discussed earlier that the poem is about losing something which we love and then learning to grow up with the loss. It tells us about a boy who is learning to grow up with the loss, and it tells us about a boy who is learning to experience grief for the first time in his life. In this poem, the boy's ball is compared to the poet's youth. Those days were very happy and innocent. The loss of the ball is the loss of the innocence and the happiness that are associated with youth. So the lesson of accepting the harsh realities of life is taught to us in this poem. So let's read the poem, which is giving us the message that how to deal, how to cope up with the loss when we are losing some who are very dear to us, or from our family, from our friends, when they are moving away from our lives. So how we have to cope with that situation, let's know about this. So the first 4 lines of the poem says, "What is the boy now? What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I sighed, go, merrily bouncing down the street, and then merrily over there, it is in the water." So dear students, please note 2 words here. One is merrily Okay, underline this word merrily, which means happily. What is the meaning of this? Happily. Okay, and the second one is bouncing. Bouncing means to go up and down. Bouncing means to go up and down. You must know that when we play with the ball, it bounces. Okay, so let's talk about these 4 lines, right? So here in these lines, the poet is talking about a boy who has lost his ball, and the poet wants to know about him and his reaction because he has lost his ball. So who has lost his ball? He wants to know what is he to do. So here he wants to know his reaction, that what he is feeling because he has lost his ball now. I saw it go merrily bouncing. So further he is saying that he asks to himself first that what this boy will do after losing the ball. He wants to know about the reaction, and the poet has seen the ball going away from the boy. He says that the ball was merrily or cheerfully jumping up and down in the street, merrily bouncing down the street. So here he is saying that the poet has seen that he was playing with the ball and it was cheerfully jumping up and down in the street. This means that when the ball skipped from the boy's hand, it went into the street, and later on it fell into the nearby water. Okay, because it is there, that merrily over there, and it is in the water. So how it fell in the water, the poet is describing that situation here. So what we learned here in this poem, in these lines, that here he wants to know the reaction of the boy, that how he is feeling, what he will now do. So that's why he is sitting and watching to the boy. Now let's talk about the literary devices or the poetic devices in these 4 lines. So first, when we will discuss the first poetic device used here. So what is anaphora, dear students? We will come to know in this stanza. So the first poetic device or the literary device used here in these lines is anaphora. Okay, please note the spelling. It's anaphora, anaphora. Now we have to see that what is this anaphora. So when this anaphora occurs when there is use of repeated words in 2 or more lines, and consecutive lines we have to see, okay, one after one. There should not be any gap. So here in the first and the second line, this is the first line, just make it sure. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? This is as one line given in your book. Okay, here for the space problem I have just written like this, but in your book it is given in one line. What is the boy who has lost his ball? So this is your first line. Okay, second line is what he is to do. So here you will notice that this first line is starting with what, and the second line is also getting started with what. So when the 2 consecutive lines are starting with the same line, there it will be the occurrence of anaphora. Okay, so what and what, this is anaphora in this stanza or in these 4 lines. Actually this is not having any stanza division in the poem, so we are just understanding and we are doing the explanation only line wise. Okay, so I have taken here 4 lines only. Now let's find out, do we have another anaphora here? So yes, see, merrily bouncing, this line is starting with merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. So you will notice the same words. Okay, these merrily, this merrily is being repeated in this line also and here also. Okay, so this is one line only, so bouncing down the street. Okay, so here you can see these are the consecutive lines in your textbook, if you will see. So that is what the consecutive lines. So merrily bouncing down the street. and merrily over there. So this merrily is being repeated once again here at the starting of the line. Please take care, at the starting of the line it should be there. Okay, so this is another anaphora. The next poetic device used in these lines is imagery. So what is imagery, dear students? Imagery is a snapshot of something. Okay, when we prepare some picture in our mind, so it is not actually based on the visualizing. It is, this imagery is, so imagery is a literary device that refers to the use of figurative language to evoke a sensory experience or create a picture with the words for the reader. So therefore imagery is not only limited to visual representations or the mental images, but it also included physical sensation and the internal emotion. That's why I am saying it can be of many types. So when we talk about the types of imagery, it may be auditory. Okay, so this describes that what you hear, what we hear. So that describes the auditory imagery. When we visualize the things, when we talk about the visual things, so that this describes what we see. It may tell the colors, the patterns, the shapes and the size. When we talk about the tactile imagery, so tactile imagery describes how do we feel. Okay, it describes when we touch or feel something, so the texture of that thing, the movement of that thing, you may say the temperature of that thing. So that is known as tactile. When we talk about the gustatory, so it describes what we taste. Whatever, suppose we have taken the ice cream, and in your poem these lines, the ice cream was very sweet and delicious. So you will describe that that what we taste. So that taste may be sour, that may be sweet, that may be acidic, that may be bitter, that may be salty. Okay, so that representation or that snapshot in her mind, that is known as gustatory imagery. And the last one we discussed in that was olfactory. So olfactory is when this situation describes the smell, what we smelled. It was the nice fragrances, bad odors, something like this. So this is known as imagery. So here we will see that where the poet is using imagery, and we have learnt that this imagery is not only limited to the visualizing the things, but here in this paragraph, here in these lines, we are getting the visualized imagery. So let's see what is this. So let's see where the poet is saying that I saw it go merrily bouncing. So there is creating an image of the ball, that it was merrily bouncing, right? So here it is what this is imagery here, where we visualized, right, that situation, that how the ball was bouncing in the street. So that we visualized, right? So this is what occurrence of imagery here. So let's see. Okay, so next poetic device here which we are using here is repetition. So what is repetition? It is when we find that some words, there may be one word, there may be two words which are being repeated, means again and again we are using those words. So you may notice here in this line that what and what. Okay, so here repetition is being done. Repetition is the occurrence of the same word at the at some intervals or in the same lines with the short distances. If we are using the words which is being repeated, that is known as repetition, right? Next one is assonance. So when we talk about this assonance, students, this is what? This is repetition of the vowel sounds. Please take care. This is the repetition of the vowel sounds. So here in the first line you may say the boy, what is the boy now who has lost his ball? So here O sound in boy, now, who, lost. Okay, this is being repeated, right? So here the use of vowel sound O is being repeated in the first line, so there is occurrence of assonance. So what I have told you, what is assonance? That is the repeated use of vowels. It may be A, E, I, O. Okay, so all the vowels we have to see. So here we noticed that in this first line, O sound is being repeated in boy, now, who, lost. So this is what? Assonance. When we talk about the next stanza or the next lines of the poem, let's see what is there. No use to say, oh, there are other balls, and ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. As he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went, I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball, is worthless now. So here in these lines, the poet is actually in the mood of consoling. Here he is representing the picture that how boy is consoling over his lost ball. Okay, so let's see, but before that let's underline some of the words. One is you can say the rigid. Rigid is what? Rigid is very fixed, means when he was staring. What is the meaning of grief? Grief means sorrow. What is the meaning of grief? That means sorrow. So in second line you can see that is sorrow. Next is trembling. In the third line, that is shaking. What is the meaning of trembling? Shaking. And staring means to look continuously, that you know. And this word harbor. Harbor is the place which is dock you can say, or the port you can say, right? So that is called harbor. And one more word is there, intrude. Intrude means to invade, okay, or to do some interruption in others you can say the matters, right? So intrude means the invaders. And one more word is there, a dime. So dime is what? It is 10 cents. 10 cents. This is what used in US, right? So that's a that is called dime. It's used for money, for the currency. And worthless. Worthless means which is useless or the valueless. So here the poet is saying that there is no benefit of consoling, because the boy is in the grief, right? He is very much disturbed. So here he is saying that there is no benefit of consoling the boy by saying that that if you have lost your ball, so we will get the another ball, okay, because he has other balls too. It is not there he is not having that only single ball, or the ball was very precious like that. He has another balls also. But as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days, but he is feeling very sad because he has lost that ball. So he is completely surrounded by sorrow. He is sad because all the memories of his childhood days, you can say the childhood days went down at the harbor with the ball. So here the poet says that the boy is very sad, as the ball which has now gone into the water reminds him of those sweet memories of the time when he owned it. This loss is unbearable loss for him, and he is grief stricken, you may say. And the poet says that he can't even tell the boy to take some money from him. So because a dime, another ball is worthless, because if he'll try to help him by giving some money, or his parents will get him the new ball for him. So the poet says that because this loss is unbearable for him, so there is no use to say that if he will give him some of the money also, so from him to get the another ball, so that will be of no use. He says, so because the new ball will not bring the sense of belonging to the boy. His memories were there with that ball. So here further the poet says that the time has come for the boy to learn the responsibility of taking care of his things, right? So this is the main thing here which the poet wants to say, that to give him the another ball, that will be of no use, because he is very much you can say the grief stricken. This loss of the ball is unbearable for him, because many memories are there which are connected to his childhood days. So now let's discuss about the poetic devices used in these lines. So the first one is metaphor. So what is this metaphor, dear students? Metaphor is the comparison between two things, okay, without the words like and as. So here young days of the poet and the lost ball, both the things are being compared here, okay. So that is what? So these young days, use of his young days into the harbor, well the ball went. So in these young days there is a metaphor, because lost ball and young days are being compared here. Next, in the next lines, he senses first responsibility in the word of possession. People will take balls, balls will be lost always, little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Money is external. So here in these lines, please underline some words. External means what? External means the things which with which the feelings are not attached, okay. So that is the meaning of external here. And possession means what? The ownership is known as possession. So here in these lines, the poet says that the boy has learnt that in this materialistic world, many of his things which he owns will be lost, and he personifies the ball as his one of the belongings, be it the worldly thing or the relationship he is in the possession of. So he says that he has to learn to live without them, no matter what is there, how his balls or his belonging lost. He says no one can buy back such things for him, okay. No one can buy such things for him, because according to him the money can't buy you everything. If it does not buy you some materialistic things, if it does buy you some materialistic things, still it will not be able to buy the sense of belongingness. So this the boy is learning, that how to stand up against the sense of lost things. This means the boy is trying to transform himself. He is learning here that nothing will be yours forever. So when we talk about the poetic devices or the literary devices used in these lines, we have first is alliteration. So what is it? Alliteration. And no one buys a ball back. So alliteration is the repetition of the consonant sound in the consecutive words or the closely written words, you can say. So here you can notice that buys, black, ball, back, okay. In these three words, B is being repeated. So it is what? When the consonant sound, okay, is being repeated, that is the occurrence of alliteration. So here in the last line we may find the occurrence of alliteration. Next is repetition also. So where is repetition? Where this ball and balls, see here balls and balls is being repeated here, right? So that is what? Repetition. Clear? That is repetition. Now let's talk about the last 4 lines of the poem. So here let's talk about the last 4 lines of the poem. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up. So here, dear students, let's talk about some of the meanings. First is desperate. What is the meaning of desperate? Desperate means hopeless. Desperate means hopeless. And the second very important word I would say in the poem is epistemology. Epistemology is knowledge of something. Okay, so what he is learning here, that he is understanding the nature of loss, right? So these are the two words which are important in this lines, and we have learned that in this 4 lines that here the boy is standing hopeless, right? He is learning that how to stand up against the sense of the lost things, and this means that the boy is trying to learn the real truth of the life, which states that you have to accept the miseries of the life and stand up again. This is the truth which everyone has to learn in his life or her life. The harsh truth of standing up against the old miseries of life that everyone has to bear. So this we have learned through this poem. When we talk about the poetic devices used in this poem, so let's see what are the poetic devices. First one is the occurrence of vowel sound E. So when there is repeated vowel sound there, so that is what? Assonance. We discussed earlier also, A, E, I, O, U, right? So here in the first line we can say the occurrence of E is there. He is learning well behind desperate eyes. So this is what? This is, repeated sound of E here. So this is what? Assonance. Next. When we talk about the rhyming scheme, okay, so the rhyming scheme, the poet is not following any rhyming scheme in this poem. So you may say this poem is written in the free verse. So when poet is not using any rhyming scheme, that is known as free verse. Now let's understand the progression of this knowledge about loss graphically. Suppose we draw a graph of rise and fall of the boy's spirit in progress of time. In the beginning of time, he has no knowledge of loss, of course. His spirits are high as he plays with his ball merrily. Bouncing, the spirit take a sharp turn and drop as the ball goes merrily over the out of reach. The first thing he feels is confusion. What he is to do then? With the first awareness of nature of loss and ultimate shaking, grief fixed him. He discovered how pain can come from within without a single scratch on the body. Then he discovers the meaning of this loss to him. All his young days to the harbor, he realizes the absolute irreversible nature of his loss to his beloved ball is gone. A dime another ball is worthless. This may be all too much information, and his spirits keep sinking and sinking. As he begins to understand, he has to prepare himself for more losses. Then he senses his first responsibility, and he will be always a little alone in his loss, and no one buys a ball back. The inability to share loss is the lowest point for the spirit. It hits rock bottom now. It's time to fortify the hurt against loss. So the spirit starts rising the experience and stages he has gone through after the loss are all now with him, and they slowly and steadily combine into a lesson that he learns in the end. And the end lesson is a bright turn in the spirit to keep going, keep moving, keep acting, to keep learning how to stand up. So he learned in the end that loss is inevitable, but recovery is possible. That's all for today. I hope you understand the poem well.